We're back, y'all.
We're back.
Hello. Welcome to another snack chat with Tina and Sarah. I feel like we've done a lot of these recordings lately, but
Yeah.
you can see other people in the recordings. You will. It's not just us. So,
Yeah.
anywho, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about life tears in just in general, but also in eating disorder recovery. So I
Yeah.
think it's a really good conversation. I love this concept and bringing it into sessions. And so I'm excited to talk more about it and introduce it maybe to anyone who isn't in TLB and maybe hasn't utilized this analogy concept before.
Yeah, if you don't work, I mean, this is something, I mean, we haven't made it up in a sense because people go through life. We didn't make up that concept, but this is a counseling style that we use, or it's a counseling trick that we use to kind of go through someone's body story with them, or food story. And then we utilize it throughout sessions to help individuals kind of deep dive into some concept work. So if you're a dietitian or a provider, this may be another helpful tip or trick. And if you're a client, this can kind of go into more detail about maybe some stuff that you're doing in sessions. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. But this is basically a little overview, is really we're framing the conversation as a way to help you understand your body story, your food story, movement story, whatever that looks like, and how your beliefs have been shaped through different phases of your life. So, hence life tears. Yeah. Um, we also want to emphasize that, like, we understand that your body or our bodies are not separate from our own lived experience. It moves with us through every tier. So a lot of times people are like, I want to go back to when I was in high school in that body, or I want to go back to pre-children body. It's not possible. Our body has gone through us through these various tiers. And so that's something that's really important to remember. And as a helpful concept, your body is actually moving with you through these life tiers. Um, you want to throw in the disclaimer that towards the end here, Sarah?
Yeah, Tina, I'm gonna find it here. Okay. I got a little cheat sheet over here, everyone. So
Sarah, get with it. She's here, y'all. I'll help you. I'll help you. These experiences are deeply individualized and they can differ based on your identity, your neurotype, your trauma history, lived experience, social context, all of those things. So this is, again, just a really generalized version to hopefully lay the framework to possibly help you in some counseling skills, or as a client, help shape your own body story. So
thanks, Tina. Thanks for covering me there. But no, I do love it because it is personalized. Everyone's tiers are very different, but everyone goes through various tiers,
yeah,
right? And so I think this concept can be applied to so many individuals because we're all going to shift what tiers we're in based on so many different things, and it's going to be different for every single person, which is really cool.
yeah, super cool. Okay, so the concept of life tiers, we're going to dive into that a little bit more. Again, it's like it really is just a made up concept that we've kind of dove into and used within sessions. So I am curious on y'all's thoughts and how you may utilize this, or how you've personally received this in a session. We're open to feedback and how this has been helpful, not helpful. But each life tier represents the phase or chapter of our life that ultimately shapes these concepts. So food, body, and movement, that's what we typically talk about. And so each life tier, which we'll go through like mini examples, helps us shape those concepts. Each tier ultimately contributes to our own body story, our food philosophy, the coping strategies we develop, the relationship that we hold with all of these concepts. And these experiences in these tiers can ultimately be really helpful and shape a very pleasant relationship, or they could be harmful and ultimately pave the way of some disordered patterns, some trauma, some deep rooted disordered beliefs that move with us through our life. And it could be conscious or unconscious. That's the tricky piece. And so when working with a dietitian here or wherever, that's what we end up seeing and uncovering a lot, is this idea of these unconscious belief systems. People may come in and be like, and Sarah, you could speak to this a lot more because you're doing a lot of direct client work, but like people come in and like, hey, I just want to work on this. And then we like start to peel back the onion and dismantle a lot of these beliefs. And we've exposed this thing that was pretty unconscious. And then people potentially are a little bit destabilized in regards to the food beliefs. And hopefully we restabilize that back up. So, yeah. You
For
want to say
sure.
that at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's so real where, yeah, someone might come in and just be like, I just need like some structure with this. And then
Yeah.
start talking about it. It's like, what would structure provide for you? And what would that look like? And this and that. And yeah, we're peeling back the layers. And it's like, oh, wow, I have all these experiences from childhood or from the philosophy that I grew up with that I didn't even realize. And yeah, a lot gets uncovered, and that's great. You know, that is the work, is uncovering those things and working through them and feeling really supported in that, and moving at the pace that feels comfortable for the client too, where it's like, we might peel back a layer and it's like, okay, we're going to hang out here for a little bit and we're just going to talk about it. We're going to sit in this space together. We're going to find ways to cope through this, and then continue to explore.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I want to point out is that exploring these tiers and doing this dismantling work, we don't want to erase these experiences. Really, what we're trying to do is learn from them, utilize these experiences in reshaping a belief system that feels incongruent with your value system, your current philosophy, your current way of life, and really understanding how they have influenced us and ways that we want to kind of reshape that into our life currently. So no erasing, just using it as a healing path forward. But in order to move into that healing path forward, we have to be able to recognize these moments so there can be some deep-rooted healing. So what we're going to do next is we're going to just go over some sample tiers. Again, this is really generic. Sarah and I are just using these as examples so that you can kind of see, but really it may be helpful for you to kind of write out your own tier story that's based on your lived experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Sarah, you want to take the first one?
For sure. So we've got early life, right? So infancy and early childhood. And this experience is going to be shaped by, the caregivers that we grow up with and their feeding patterns and how we are fed, and how food is introduced to us. And then also it starts to create like emotional associations with food that I think a lot of times these things can be very unconscious, right? Because we are so young, but these relationships are being made based on our food environment and what we have access to or what we don't have access to. It will also include like messages we receive about bodies. Again, like we are so young, but we're receiving so much information, and yeah, from the people that we are around, we might start to kind of create this belief system around bodies and all of that. Some things to consider too is like, if someone is neurodivergent, the sensory sensitivities to food and things like that, that might start to be shaped. And if a caregiver is not aware of maybe sensory challenges, that, that can kind of create a dynamic that might feel really challenging. And if there isn't the interoceptive awareness of like hunger and fullness cues and things like that, that can be really challenging for a kiddo or an infant to like communicate food needs or even understand what food needs look like. And then again, makes it difficult for a caregiver to then meet those needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see a lot with like, this could be something where maybe we're working with the parents talking about their kids. My kiddo has reflux. They're constantly spitting up food, or maybe they've had an allergy and just not a great eater from the start, and they've had failure to thrive. So maybe not growing along the growth curve. These things ultimately are little traumas that, even though maybe consciously the baby's brain isn't going to be aware of in that moment, it is kind of setting the stage for the future, right? Um, and so this really is important to learn. How were you as a baby? Was feeding easy? Did you have any issues? Was food and body difficult from the start? That is really important. Yeah, and then we have, maybe that's the neurotypical, but the neurodivergent side where, oh, you have these infants that have sensory needs or texture needs or, more spectrum type situations, even though it's maybe not diagnosable because the baby can't communicate in ways that we can understand, but this is really setting the stage. Um, Sarah had mentioned like really external comments. And so this is such a volatile stage because the kids are really susceptible to the family life or the environment that they are in. And so if the family is dealing with their own issues themselves, then that is likely being projected onto the kids. Kids are most likely born with these cues, again, unless there's like some sort of neurodivergence. And so with that, if they are externally taught to not trust their bodies, that food is neutral, that bodies are neutral, then they start to pick up on that and basically just regurgitate what they're hearing. They don't know what they're saying, but it is ultimately laying the foundation. Um, so yeah, one thing like early comments of like clean your plate or using food as a reward can really plant those seeds for how individuals see food later, or making body comments can really set the stage for a kiddo being confident or not confident in their body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so hard because it's, I think again, like caregivers or whoever's in the house, it's like they have their own stuff that maybe they haven't had an opportunity to work through. And so unknowingly are kind of passing on
Yeah.
just more like harmful messaging around food and bodies. And so it's just something to kind of bring awareness to, and something we can kind of support clients through.
Yeah. The next phase or tier example would be school aged or childhood to really preteen. What we notice the most here that could be influence is really the now an additional role of external. So you have school age kids, classmates, so much peer influence with what we're experiencing now, a lot of social media, even if they're not exposed to social media directly, so much of technology is being exposed to kids and preteens, and that is ultimately shaping their experience with food and with bodies as this dichotomy, this good or bad versus keeping things pretty neutral. I always say that us at TLB, we are the salmon swimming upstream. We are going against the current because most of society deems food as good or bad or bodies as, prioritizing one over the other. And we are really trying to hold this neutral framework. So kids and teens are being exposed to kind of the societal messaging.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think based on those experiences, just kiddos starting to kind of question themselves based upon comparing themselves to their peers, right? Like, oh, my friends do this. Why is my experience different? Or my friends eat this, but I eat this way. And,
Right.
That comparison can be really hard. And then you have absolutely those external comments and things that our culture is kind of passing around.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe like certain families, they don't allow certain foods for whatever reason. And then it's like the kids again are just regurgitating at school, oh, like we're not allowed to have this. And other kids are like, well, why? I mean, it's even starting with my 7-year-old. He was like, my friend said that their family doesn't eat this. I'm like, every family has different rules, different beliefs. It's okay. This is ours. You can still eat the cookie or whatever, right? So really trying to hold that neutral philosophy because we cannot control what is happening in an uncontrollable environment. So the messaging is going to be received whether the house is neutral or not, right? It's just really about the foundation that's built. This is also the phase where identity is really being built and some like the inner critic comes up. Am I too much? Am I not enough? Do I fit in? Like, am I a cool kid? Am I not? Is my body too big or whatever, right? And so if without the foundation or if there is some projection, this is where that body story and that self-identity really start to become solidified. You want to talk about the neurodivergent aspect possibilities here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, like an individual who is neurodivergent may need more like predictability with food and stability with food, like knowing what to expect when it comes to like food taste and textures and temperatures and all of that. And so I think that, this can be challenging too. There might be challenges that arise with like having school lunches or school meals just in general, or again, packing foods that are different than what friends are packing and, kind of having comments around that, feeling really misunderstood if a meal feels really challenging or you're invited to a birthday party and you don't know what food is going to be there, and that can be really distressing. And so I think, yeah, it can be a really challenging time when kids may be expected like, oh, you're all going to have the same experience because you're all in the same class, and it's like, oh, but we're not all going to have the same experience at all.
Or not? Yeah. This is where sometimes like the early signs of food anxiety or disordered eating patterns can start to show, but are not always noticed, named, diagnosed, right? It's such like a kind of gray time. So this is where that story can kind of start to come to surface a little bit. We're going to
Absolutely.
shift into the next tier example, which is adolescence. So it really is, you know, kind of more preteen to early teen. Again, these are just examples, but so we're like nitpicking into like every phase of life. But this is really the peak time for body image concerns, identity formation, intense exposure to diet culture. Like there's so much likely accessibility to social media and technology. There also likely is more independence with food, families giving more independence to kids to make their own lunch or breakfast or potentially dinners or be involved in some grocery preparation. Also like getting their own snacks and stuff like that. So there's so much pressure to potentially conform and make choices that socially are the right ones. There's also puberty here, and this often triggers a significant body change. Most often, kids get wider, not necessarily taller. They will get taller in the future, but they mostly get wider before they go through puberty. And so, as their bodies develop and change, so many insecurities can come up, so that how that is received by their family and their classmates can really shape how that paves that path for them.
Totally. And I think too, like this could be a time where maybe individuals start to notice like the anxieties of their family, right? And their beliefs around bodies. And if they're expressing concern with body changes, even though it's a very natural thing. And so that can be hard because that message is then getting reinforced, or it's like, I don't know. I didn't choose to go through puberty right now. My body's just changing on me. And I'm being told that maybe that's not the best thing, even
Mhm.
though that's what is needing at the time.
Right, right. So this can be the space where some eating disorders are popping up because there is so much body change and maybe that isn't being well received, that then the control and perfectionism, self-worth, lack of acceptance come in and then is linked to food and body and things that, teens at this point have access to manipulate.
Mhm.
For neurodivergent teens, we're throwing this in there because we really want to be able to recognize the difference between neurotypical and neurodivergence. Those different pathways are pretty significant. This is likely where there's a lot of sensory overwhelm, social stress, because they're starting to realize maybe my social cues aren't typical. And then they start to mask a little bit. And so, again, without helpful resources, we can see a teen kind of go into their shell and hide, and then that kind of defined their inner self versus with helpful resources and validation, kind of that neurodivergence come out and shine and really create this like lovely identity. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Well, shall we transition into young adulthood?
Yeah. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Wow. Right. That, people going in all different directions that, after high school or whatever age, right? We're just transitioning, right? It could be college, it could be the workforce, it could be just gaining more independence as a whole, right? As we enter those young adult years. And all of a sudden you may solely be responsible for your food intake when before there was a lot of support at home, or you're moving on to a campus or into a new city or whatever on your own, and you have very different access to food. And yeah, you're relying on a lot of external changes, and then also having to kind of figure out what that looks like for yourself and make your own schedule and remember to feed yourself without the like structure of certain meal times at school or at home and things like that.
Mhm. Yeah, and then this can really create a lot of trauma, stress, instability, heightened reliance on maladaptive coping skills and disordered eating patterns. It's a really stressful time for a lot of individuals. And I keep coming back without this like foundational space or maybe food confidence, body confidence, or knowledge of I can have a hard time and still hold body respect. This is like the perfect scenario where struggles can be real and then coping skills can be sought out. But then the easy access is manipulating food, manipulating body, manipulating movement. So this is another pivotal moment where, oh, wow, we've created a potential body story that is developing some disordered belief patterns. Or this can be a stage where someone's coming into more of a insightful space and going, hey, I kind of want to seek help. I'm noticing some recognition of disordered eating patterns as a kid. And this is really where I'm starting to build more of my self-awareness, my value systems. And now I'm wanting to kind of shift that and do my own work, right? So we can kind of see some like deeper diving into disordered patterns or more awareness into, whoa, I don't want to do this. Now I'm kind of separated from my family. Not saying families are always the issue. We're all trying our best, y'all. But like the potential, oh, I'm shifting, I'm more independence. I want to kind of redefine myself. So we can kind of see some movement forward into neutrality or some deeper diving into disordered beliefs. Um, Kind of the next couple stages is where we really kind of enforce the gray, because once individuals are in this kind of adulthood and are experiencing ongoing transitions, it's like, well, what does the next phase of life look like for you? An example could be like going into a serious relationship, parenting, various career shifts, maybe medical experiences, aging, grief moments, hormonal issues, right? And so, really, what I want to point out is that during each of these moments, like I'll speak to myself, parenthood, having children, my body going through each birth and each pregnancy, that itself was its own separate tier. My first pregnancy and birth to my second pregnancy and birth, my body was not the same in either. And so in each of those tiers, it was a fully different story. It required me to do my own post healing, right? So again, it's so individualized, but each life moment, whatever that holds for your lived experience, paves that body story, that food relationship. So
Absolutely. Yeah. And there is no like specific definition of what a life moment is either,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
anything that feels significant to you as an individual and really, yeah, just feels like it's drastically impacting your life. That's a life moment, and your body's going through that along with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this means that healing really involves reparenting ourselves and challenging these long held, deep rooted beliefs. This also can be a time of like reclaiming joy, flexibility, body trust, if the person wants it and they want to allow it. Flipping into the neurodivergent aspect, this is kind of the space where now a lot of like current generation is uncovering misdiagnosed, autism or sensory struggles and start to embrace these new accommodations, coping skills, and sensory needs. So that could really be the exploration and paved path for recovery in that nature. Um, so really kind of the final stage is this like open-ended one, which really means like recovery and integration. It is not a final stage because as your life goes on, there's future life tiers, but it really is the ongoing space for reflection, choice, new narratives, new value systems and core beliefs. It really is taking this space where we look back at all the tiers with curiosity, nurturing, no judgment, right? We're not going in and saying, oh, well, this like totally destroyed me. It's like, no, hey, like that happened. Yeah, it was pretty unpleasant. It shaped this, but how can we learn from that experience and pave a new path? Um, so identifying what shaped us and how we want to reshape it with food and relationship is really important. So if we're not willing to do that work in doing that identification, that's okay. But that may be where you kind of get stuck in some of the recovery process because there is like a deep rooted belief that's not really uncovered. Anything you want to add there? It's a lot.
No, I think, yeah, I think it really covers it, and again, we're just happy to move at whatever pace feels comfortable to each person that we're working with. And we're uncovering these layers with you with no judgment or anything like that, just with a lot of curiosity and, yeah, providing some insight where, it might just be like, wow, this makes so much sense. You just reflected this to me. And we're seeing this today, and we make that connection. And I think that can be really empowering and really validating sometimes, where it's like, oh, I didn't even think about how this would impact this 10 years down the road.
Right. So yeah, I hope we'll kind of go over some key takeaways. We hope this is helpful, and then we'll shift over into kind of closing out. But some key
Mhm.
takeaways are that this freedom and flexibility is not about perfection. It really is about curiosity, self-awareness, self-compassion, and your own individualized choice. Everyone's version of recovery looks different depending on their own story and lived experience. Um, your relationship with food, body, and movement is part of your life story. So it evolves just like you do. So we're not here to define that for you. We're here to walk alongside you in that. And just because maybe one life tier was easier than the next, it doesn't disqualify you from any sort of healing. There is no like comparison journey here. It's all super individualized. And whether you're neurotypical or neurodivergent, your needs are validating or valid and deserve this process and support. So you want to close this
Absolutely.
out, Sarah?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, definitely comment below. We're happy to, expand upon any of this. share this video with anyone who you feel like could really benefit from it. Like, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll see y'all next time.
Yeah. I want to encourage y'all to do your own reflection with life tiers, and we will try to, I don't know how to do it, but if we can't, we're going to try to link our life tier worksheet, but if I can't figure out how to do that or how to link it on the website, then you can always email us via the website, and we'll go ahead and provide that to you because we have a little fun worksheet that Sarah created for this little activity. So thanks, y'all. See ya.
Thank you.